Hey guys, how you going? This is part 2 of the Corey Diggs Measles Masterminds and Millions. Part 2. The media, HHS, WHO and CDC are all up in arms over why people are concerned about vaccinating and going so far as to proclaim the measles outbreak is the anti-vaxxers' fault. They are the conspiracy theorists spreading misinformation, and this is dangerous. The problem is they only wish to portray selected statistics while being very deceptive and exaggerating the danger, which has played a major role in huge public distrust. For the past 26 years since 1993, there have been 5,788 cases of measles reported in the US and 4 measles-related deaths, 2 of which had other complications and was only determined after death. The CDC, WHO and mainstream media report 0.1% to 0.2% measles death rate in the US, when in fact it is 0.07 over the last 26 years. 483 claims of injury or death from the MMR vaccine have been paid by the US government since 1988. 77 individuals that contracted the measles in 2019 outbreak were already vaccinated. 963 cases of the measles were reported in 1994. Only 338 were laboratory tested, and 109 did not have the measles. They still report 963. And as I was saying, guys, I think the measles is a a live virus when they give you that too. So for 30 days after that, you are possibly, I'm not sure about whether it's a live virus or not, but you could possibly be giving it to other people. I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm not 100% sure. So we can, if anyone wants to check that for me, or if you want to try and debunk me, please do. Part 1 covered how the Clintons masterminded the mandatory free vaccines for children program back in 1994. This was important information to lay the groundwork for how the program and vaccine industry works, as well as the government having complete oversight. More information on the government's involvement will be presented in subsequent reports. This is a 6-part investigative report, and it's highly recommended to read Part 1 prior to moving on to Part 2 below. So if you haven't, please go and see Part 1 of this. And then come to this one. This is Part 2. The Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services recently stated this anti-vaccine movement has proven to be very dangerous. While mainstream news backs her up with claims that there are myths, lies, conspiracy theories, and widely debunked information circulating social media. Whereas there may very well be some misinformation circling, most anti-vaxxers are not 100% anti-vaccine. In fact, they have spent a great deal of hours sifting through documentation from the CDC and Health and Human Services so as to extract the critical data that doesn't seem to make the news. They are simply trying to share the information that's not being shared with the public. These same people have been fighting for investigations, legitimate scientific research to be done and exposed, whistleblowers be heard, and transparency of the ingredients, as well as the $4.1 billion in settled claims, all come to light. They just want the truth. The more truth is suppressed, while sickness, autism, paralysation, and infertility prosper, the more people want answers. And the fact is, when you shut whistleblowers down, publish discrepancies in numbers, redact FOIA requests, settle claims in secrecy, all while lobbying both sides of the government, who control the entire vaccine industry, it's going to raise some eyebrows. And that right there is the issue. Not that these folks are 100% anti-vax, as most people probably recognise that some vaccines have likely helped to eradicate diseases, but just how many vaccines are necessary? What exactly is in them, and why are the health issues and infertility at staggering rates? Big discrepancies and misrepresentations in reporting on the measles outbreak. The CDC publishes case updates on their website. As of April 26, 2019, they claim that 704 individual cases of measles have been confirmed in 22 states, indicating there was an increase of 78 from the week prior, when they were reporting it to be at 626. I was going to say 666. Yep, because that's what these vaccines are. They state that this is the greatest number of cases reported since 1994, which is an interesting year if you are following along. They also note that case count is preliminary and subject to change, and that the data is updated every Monday. Measles cases and outbreaks. Measles cases in 2019. From January the 1st to April the 26th, 2019, 704 individual cases of measles have been confirmed in 22 states. This is an increase of 78 cases from the previous week. This is the greatest number of cases reported in the US since 1994, and since measles was declared eliminated in 2000. The states that have reported cases to the CDC are Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Missouri, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Texas, Tennessee, and Washington. Number of measles cases reported by year. And here's another thing. I don't know if your country does this, guys, but in Australia, anything remotely, if you think you've got the measles, they'll put that down as a measles case. Cases at December the 29th, 2018, case count is preliminary and subject to change. So since 2014, was that a big year to vaccinate? From 1993 to 2019, 26 years, there have been a total of 4 measles-related deaths in the US. The CDC claims that 0.1% or to 0.2%, 1 to 2 per 1,000 people, die from the measles in the US. Let's look at the numbers. Below is a breakdown going back 26 years from reported measles cases by the CDC. In 1993, there were 312. 94, there were 963. Oh, it's a big jump. In 95, there were 309. I'd guess that 94 was a scare. Like, people were scared. So they reported it more, and then even if they didn't have the measles, they probably didn't take them off the list, because that's what they tend to do. Even though they say they update it, the only way they're going to update it is to add more to it. 1995, 309. 96, 508. 97, 130. 98, 100. 99, 100. 2000, 86. I thought they said they'd completely eliminated it in 2000. 2001, 116. 2002, 44. 2003, 56. 2004, 33. 2005, 66. 2006, 54. 2007, 43. 2008, 127. 2009, 71. From 2010 to 2019 totaled 2,662 as seen in chart above. Total 5,788. And that's just cases of measles. Between 1993 and 1999, there was 1 measles-related death. In 2003, a 13-year-old girl died 3 months after having a bone marrow transplant. According to the CDC, she tested positive for measles during a brain biopsy after death. According to the CDC, a 75-year-old international traveller was infected in Israel and died from the measles in 2003 as well. In 2015, a woman passed away from pneumonia with no sign of the measles, and it was later reported to have had measles after an autopsy was done. Note that 3 of the 4 are not babies, and the 4th does not indicate the age. So 4 people in how many years? This goes to 2015, so this is like from 1993 to 2015, 4 people died. Based on the above numbers, 4 out of 5,788 people died that had the measles, 2 of whom had other complications as well, so that brings it down to 2. So why do we need a vaccination? I remember when I was young, people used to have measles, mumps and chickenpox parties. The parents would take you to someone who had that disease, so you got it while you were young. You developed a very good immune system from it. And I don't ever remember anyone dying that I knew of who got the measles, mumps or chickenpox. This is scare. See, fear. Fear drives everything. It'll drive people into vaccinating their children, drive them into vaccinating themselves. Guys, this really bugs me, especially when so many people listen to the TV because they're repeatedly told over and over and over again, vaccine, vaccine, vaccines. They're good, they don't harm, they're good, they don't do anything. Okay. This brings the death rate to 0.07 or 1 in 1,447. The numbers the CDC, WHO and mainstream media are using predate 1993. Claiming 2 per 1,000 is vastly different than 1 per 1,500, especially when it refers to lives. One key statistic neither the CDC, WHO or mainstream media include in their reports is the fact that there have been 483 measles vaccine injury and death claims paid by the US government since 1988. Okay, let that sink in. 4 deaths, 2 of which had other complications, so 2 deaths caused by the measles itself up to 2015. But there have been 483 measles vaccine injuries and deaths since 1988. Do you understand? Do you know what they're doing? They believe the world is overpopulated. And so do a lot of other people because they've heard it over and over again as well. This is all coming from these psychopathic elite people, right? And from what I've heard and what I've seen, I've also researched that if you got everybody in the world, you could fit them into New South Wales in Australia. That's one state in Australia. Standing side by side, every person in the world. That you wouldn't even need the whole of Australia to put every person in the world if they stood side by side. And I believe they inflate the numbers of population so that it does look like there's more than there actually is. And then they put you into cities so that you believe it. They build cities so that it gets crowded and they import more people, and then you look at the cities and they're all crazy and busy and you just think, oh my God, the world is overpopulated, but it's not. Anyway, that's what their reason for wanting to depopulate, and I believe the vaccine industry is part of it. Keeping all the above in mind, the CDC also maintains weekly charts by state and region, indicating the number of reports coming in from each location via the NNDSS. They also receive numbers directly from the state health departments, which is then added to the weekly chart. They state the health department numbers are subject to ongoing revision of information, and it may reflect changes to the counts in later weeks. All of this information is gathered to determine the final counts in the chart above. That said, it would seem their ongoing weekly case reports are lagging very far behind. As of this week, from January 1st to April the 26th, 2019, same time span as chart above, they only indicate 271 Indigenous and 237 imported, totalling 508. That's a very significant difference. This all has a similar resemblance to the CDC's swine flu data cover-up back in 2009. Cheryl Atkinson did an amazing 3-month investigation into it. After obtaining state-by-state test results, they indicated that it was unlikely that people had the H1N1 and probably didn't have the flu at all. In short, the then CDC Director Thomas Frieden declared the swine flu to be an epidemic, insisting on vaccines for all, even those who were told they already had the H1N1, unless they had lab confirmation. Meanwhile, the CDC abruptly advised states to stop testing for the H1N1 flu and stop counting cases. They shipped out 30 million doses, encouraging them to get the vaccine and that it would be safe. Unfortunately for those who already had the H1N1 vaccine, it was dangerous to get a second one because it could expose them to significant side effects such as paralysis from Guillain-Barré syndrome. The adult influenza vaccine is the leading injury claim in the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. It can cause Guillain-Barré syndrome and even death. And if you've seen any adults with that, that is horrific. I've seen males and grown females with Guillain-Barré syndrome and their lives are destroyed. Their families' lives are destroyed, guys. They can't function anymore. They're paralysed. It's awful. The government has already paid out millions in settlements from taxpayers' dollars just between 2011 and 2014. Why is the media misrepresenting a baby and claiming that those that choose not to vaccinate are the dangerous cause for the measles spreading? Let's be very clear about some key numbers before delving into the information the media is putting out. As noted in the CDC chart above, they state, this is the greatest number of cases reported in the US since 1994. Let's take a look at the CDC report from 1994. 25 years ago, 30% of the purported cases of measles cited religious or philosophical reasons for not vaccinating. This is nothing new. While all mainstream news is purporting the same story about anti-vaccine movement creating the spread of the measles, it should be duly noted that in 1994, the last time there was a measles outbreak, the CDC reported of the 963 cases, 539 were unvaccinated and 294, 54%, cited religious or philosophical exemption, or 30% overall. That was 25 years ago. Another interesting number, 338 of the 963 who allegedly had measles were laboratory tested, indicating only 229, 68%, were actually confirmed to have the measles. If they had tested all 963, the overall number of individuals purported to have the measles may have been substantially less. 8% of the cases were related to international importations, only 15% were 12 months of age or younger. For the record, only 45 were hospitalised and not one person died. In November 2018, the Times of Israel reported on measles in Jerusalem. They used a photoshopped image of a doctor holding a baby absolutely covered in measles and ran with the title, "Toddler Dies of Measles in Jerusalem," in the first such incident in 15 years. When one reviews the original stock photo called "Doctor Holding a Beautiful Newborn Baby," next to the photoshopped image that the same photographer provided as a stock photo, it's startling. When one reads a headline like that while seeing this photo, it invokes emotional response. A simple reverse image search reveals that both stock photos by the same photographer have been available for quite some time on iStock, Adobe, Photolia, AP Images, Dreamstime, Getty Images, and others. And that was the doctor holding a beautiful newborn baby from the background clinic. And I hope they show you the doctored version. No. Oh, they showed you another version of this with the child with spots all over it. The November 1st, 2018 Times of Israel piece is very misleading with the title photo combo, along with the caption stating, "Illustrative newborn baby suffering from measles." The last paragraph on this portion of the screenshot states, "The girl's death comes amid the growing phenomena of parents refusing to vaccinate their children due to various discredited and unproven claims that the life-saving practice is dangerous." Sorry guys, there's a lot of smoke around here, so I'm going to be coughing a bit. But this is how they drive fear into people. And I've got so many friends on Facebook, as I said, that are so pro-vax that I'm sure some of them hate me for being anti-vax. And honest to God, I don't know why they still remain friends with me, but they do. But anyway, the numbers reported by the CDC back in 1994 clearly depict that this is not a phenomenon. Here they also make a blanket statement implying people are incapable of reviewing the statistics themselves or examining their own health issues after receiving a vaccine, while suggesting all negative information on vaccines is in fact discredited and unproven. If this were the case, the government would not have settled $4.1 billion in claims over the years, which, according to their own guidelines, petitions must meet medical criteria for compensation. So in actual fact, it'll be a lot more than that. It's only that they will only let so much criteria. Like you have to have a lot of criteria to get any compensation, okay? So you have to be really, really damaged. So normal kids with autism and other injuries won't even get looked at prior to holding a hearing in which both parties can present evidence. So you have to have pretty, and I'm sure it's pretty strict medical criteria. Like there has to be a lot of stuff. Toddler dies of measles in Jerusalem in first such incident. This is the picture. Ready? Now they've put measles all over that baby. It's the same photo, guys. If you need to, rewind and have a look. An 18-month-old toddler has died from measles in Jerusalem, the first recorded death from measles in Israel in the past 15 years. According to officials at the capital's Shah Zedek Hospital, the infant was not vaccinated against the virulently contagious disease. The infant didn't have the bloody disease, you idiots. Sorry, not you, these people, like these people who call themselves authorities, experts. How expert are they? If they're doing this to you, how expert are doctors at all? I'm not saying, look, I go to a doctor. If you're cut open or anything like that, and if you need to, go to a doctor. But I don't have faith in them because of this. Because if they're willing to push this, how good are they at investigating when I can find out that this is going on, guys? Anyone can find out. The girl may have contracted the disease from her parents, both of whom were diagnosed with measles and neither of whom had been vaccinated. See? Drive that fear. Then everybody hates anti-vax people. The girl's death comes amid growing phenomenon of parents refusing to vaccinate their children due to various discredited and unproven claims that the life-saving practice is dangerous. The doctored photo of the baby with measles is such a hit that it's been used by Huffington Post, Cosmos, MSN, and NBC as well. The Huffington Post piece, dated February 21st, 2019, is titled BC Considering Mandatory Vaccination Registry Due to Measles Outbreak. This after only 9 hang on. If the Huffington Post title BC, that's not Israel, is it? So, because Israel had an outbreak, and it was a fake one anyway, because the baby was actually okay and didn't have the measles, it was photoshopped, everyone else has to have mandatory vaccines? Am I getting this right? Am I confused in some way, guys? Let me know in the comments if you think I'm confused. This after only 9 confirmed cases in the Vancouver area. They went on to state the measles is nothing to sneeze at, and the WHO reported there were 110,000 measles deaths in 2017, most among children under age 5. Of course, that's out of 7.53 billion people, but they don't mention this as a global figure and leave one to be shocked and awed by the large number. The photo of the baby with measles is placed directly under the WHO's statistic, with a caption stating a stock photo of a newborn baby with chickenpox, measles or rubella lying in the hands of a doctor. This, of course, is entirely inaccurate, as the baby is not with these illnesses, but rather has been doctored to appear it has one of these illnesses. Misleading, but at least they conveyed it was a stock photo. Not that many people read the captions. Measles is nothing to sneeze at. Complications include blindness, ear infections that can lead to deafness, pneumonia, encephalitis, or inflammation of the brain. No, that's what the vaccines will lead to. The disease can also be fatal. In 2017, there were 110,000 measles deaths among children under age 5 in the World Health Organization says. Yeah, I think they should be taken down as a World Health Organization with this rubbish. On March the 1st, 2019, MSN reported anti-vaccine fake news behind spike in measles. NHS. They go on to state irresponsible anti-vaccination messages circulated on social media platforms may be contributing to an increase in measles cases and a decline in vaccine take-up. The head of NHS England has warned, under the photo, their caption reads, "Baby with measles, file pic." The establishment and available evidence are unanimous that vaccines work and that their value lies in mass uptake. Okay, well, if the vaccine works, why does everyone else have to be vaccinated? If you have so much faith in vaccines that they work, why does everybody around you need to be vaccinated? You're more of a threat to an unvaccinated person than an unvaccinated person is to you if you believe in the vaccines that you're taking. Again, am I confused here, guys? That is right, isn't it? The vaccination is supposed to stop you from getting the disease. So why are vaccinated people worried about anti-vaccinated people? If you're so confident in the vaccine that you've just got, you need not worry about an unvaccinated person giving you the disease. You've just been vaccinated for it. The lack of logic is astounding. Yet the anti-vaccination movement has grown in recent years and is cited as a factor in alarming spikes in measles cases in the US, France and Italy. That's probably because people are talking to each other, and people with autistic kids tend to know when these things happen. And then people talk, and then people get to learn that your vaccines aren't that good. The message which often claim vaccinations are dangerous, can compromise children's immune system, and programs are pushed by pharmaceutical companies with financial interest. Really? They're pushed. Oh, the message which... I think I'm reading this the wrong way. The messages which often claim vaccinations are dangerous, can compromise children's immune system, and programs pushed by pharmaceutical companies with financial interest. Yes, they are. Because if you take vaccines out of it, pharmaceutical companies nearly go broke. They've been taken up by some populist political movements such as Five Star in Italy, while Donald Trump has cited a link between vaccines and autism. That's because there is a link. The government has paid 483 people for claims of injury and death against MMR vaccine alone. Major news sources have all reported on Big Pharma lobbying on both sides of the fence. This is no secret. It's also no secret that Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation have accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars from Big Pharma while she was Secretary of State. More on that in Part 4. On March the 5th, 2019, Cosmos published a piece titled "One More Time with Feeling. No link found between measles, vax and autism." This one conveys a much richer caption. Measles cases have soared in several countries. Young children bear the burden of parents' decisions not to immunise. This one is entirely misleading while tugging on parents' emotions. Some might find their mocking about a link between vaccines and autism to be distasteful. Others might find it to be terribly untrue, especially for those who have children with autism. Yeah, in 2016, Cheryl Atkinson reported on what the news wasn't saying about vaccine autism studies, whereby the study released in 2016 was indicating no link between vaccines and autism. The consulting firm didn't disclose their affiliations with the health industry and government, which was a conflict of interest. Many took it as a conclusive evidence while disregarding a plethora of studies that indicate there is a potential connection. Atkinson listed and linked numerous studies in this report and broke down a very large propaganda campaign disparaging well-published neurologists, pharmacists, epidemiologists, immunologists, PhDs, chemists and microbiologists from the top-notch universities and research institutes. And finally, she brought up an excellent point that not only rings true for the scientists and researchers, but how the media is treating the public as well. It's theoretically possible that all of the studies supporting a possible link between vaccines and autism are wrong. And if the propagandists are to be believed, each of the researchers is an incompetent crank, quack, nut, or fraud, and of course anti-vaccine for daring to dabble in research that attempts to solve the autism puzzle and leads to vaccine safety issues. The scientists and their research are controversial simply because the propagandists declare them to be. It should also be noted that Atkinson covered the first vaccine autism court-awarded case back in 2010. At 18 months old, Hannah Poling was vaccinated against 9 diseases. Her health rapidly declined and she began showing signs of autism. In 2002, Hannah's parents filed an autism claim in federal vaccine court. The case took 5 years to settle, which resulted in a minimum of $1.5 million. The government said vaccines aggravated an unknown mitochondrial disorder, which didn't cause her autism, but resulted in it. Given those circumstances, it's possible other children with mitochondrial disorder could be susceptible to the same scenario that Hannah endured and continues to endure for the rest of her life. As of 2010, there were 4,800 people awaiting disposition in federal vaccine court. One more time with feelings. No link found between measles, vaccine, and the media are complicit in this. The media, the government and vaccine companies, they need to be held accountable. A study of 650,000 children finds immunisation has no influence on the condition. Andrew Masterton reports. On April 15th, 2019, NBC News promoted one of the most misleading representations of the photos. Amongst all of them in a 2.5-minute segment that opened up with very interesting tones stating, "Tonight America on track for its worst measles outbreak in 25 years. On the screen it opens with the chest of a child covered in measles, then quickly flips to the baby covered in measles with a banner across the screen stating, "Nurse battles vaccine myths as measles outbreak hits 555 cases." They go on to state that health officials are urging parents to vaccinate their children, offering free clinics and shots, declaring states of emergency, and say those falsely linking vaccines from everything to seizures and autism are just myths and are dangerous. They fail to mention the $4.1 billion in taxpayer money that was paid out in settlements by the government's vaccine compensation plan for injury and death that they deemed to be compensable. Okay, and so you know what? You'd save a lot of taxpayer money if taxpayers did not fund vaccines. You'd save a lot of taxpayer money because they couldn't get the compensation. Because there wouldn't be any compensation. So you wouldn't have to pay all that tax. Guys, yous are getting ripped off, and I'm sure it's the same in every country, as I said. I'm sure they do the same thing here. Okay. They also failed to mention the 483 inquiry and death claims against the MMR vaccine that the government paid out dating back to 1988. As a side note, by free shots they mean taxpayers are paying for it. If one was to search the VAERS system for reported events after receiving vaccines, seizures happens to be a big one. On a personal note, my friend's child had seizures seconds after being injected with a vaccine while the nurse was still standing by her side. She was immediately sent to hospital and has had devastating health issues ever since, missing countless days off school over the past few years. It is a reality the mainstream news, big pharma and government doesn't like to talk about, so they debunk it. And there's links and that in here, guys. Nurse on a mission to fight anti-vaccine myths as the measles outbreaks grows, NBC. Yeah, right. I'll get your free shot today. USA Today reports viral misinformation, rise of anti-vaxxer movement requires news literacy inoculation. They go on to state what changed in recent years. The anti-vaxxer movement has flooded social media platforms with misinformation questioning the safety of vaccines. Articles, videos and posts replete with conspiracy theories, hoaxes and pseudoscience have well gone viral. And I'd say that your vaccines are conspiracy theories, hoaxes and pseudoscience, but people are actually buying into it. Many people have been persuaded to make healthcare decisions based on proactive, frightening and false content that puts their children and communities at risk. As anyone can see, that they do not want people questioning the safety of vaccines, and anyone that does is a conspiracy theorist. This is what is dangerous. This propaganda, making blanket statements to scare and confuse folks so that they won't seek the answers they deserve to know. Perspective. They all purport that in recent years there's been a rise in the anti-vaxxer movement, and those are the people responsible for the spread of an outbreak. They are also reporting on the serious danger of the measles, how it can result in death, and the dire threat it is to babies. What they like to suggest as being conspiracy theory. Legitimate journalists like to refer to it as statistics, data, facts and evidence. Let's put this in perspective. The 1994 US measles outbreak. 963 cases were reported. 15% were aged less than 15 months. 24% were greater than or equal to 20 years of age. 8% from international importations. 338 were laboratory tested, confirming only 229, 68% actually had the measles. If 68% applied to all 963 cases as an overall measure, that would represent only 652 actual cases. 848 reported vaccination status, of which 539, 64 were unvaccinated. 54% of 539 chose not to vaccinate, citing religious or philosophical reasons. 171 had at least one dose of measles-containing vaccines and contracted measles. 4 cases had both doses of measles vaccines and still contracted measles. 45 people were hospitalised, 0 deaths. The report concluded with important characteristics of current epidemiologic trends are the shift in age distribution of cases to older persons, the large proportion of cases in groups whose numbers do not routinely accept vaccinations, and the increase in numbers of cases linked to international importations. More than half of the cases in persons aged 5 to 19 years were associated with outbreaks among persons with a religious or philosophical exemption to vaccine. Known international importations or spread from international importations accounted for almost 1/5 of the reported measles cases in 1994. That was 25 years ago, whereas 45 people were hospitalised allegedly from choosing not to vaccinate, which resulted in 0 deaths that same year. 6,700 children and adults chose to enjoy the dangers of amusement rides, which resulted in them being treated at US hospital emergency rooms for injuries. Unfortunately, 2 who chose to go on the amusement rides resulted in fatalities. It was a rough year at the amusement parks. Sorry guys, just having a sip of my tea so I don't cough. 2018 to 2019 measles outbreak. 704 cases have been reported across 22 states. 508 are logged into their weekly location disease charts, creating wide discrepancy in numbers. 14% under 12 months, and median age patient is 5 years old. 6% from international importation. 71% are unvaccinated, but they don't indicate whether they had documented proof of that, as they did in 1994. Nor do they state how many cited religious or philosophical reasons. This is only an increase of 7% from 25 years ago. 18% unknown if vaccinated. 11%, 77 people were vaccinated and still contracted measles. They claim one dose is 93% effective and two doses are 97% effective. 9% hospitalised. Waiting on statistics of actual laboratory numbers confirming measles. 0 deaths. As parents weigh the odds about vaccinating their children, here are some other important statistics to consider. Since 1988, over 20,522 petitions have been filed with the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. They compensated 6,465 of those. Taxpayers have paid $4.1 billion in injury and death compensation to those who have suffered from vaccines. From the time they are born, babies receive numerous immunisations, up to 28 shots by age 2. States are actively trying to pass bills to eliminate religious exemptions. In 2000, it cost $282.19 to vaccinate one child in the public sector, which increased to $1,894.52 by 2014 due to the increase in number of vaccines. Federal funds, taxpayer dollars, pay for 95% of all publicly funded vaccinations. VCF program cost $4.3 billion in 2017. Federal and state governments have 100% oversight on the vaccine industry. They are trying to add mandatory vaccines to multiple states, such as controversial HPV vaccine Gardasil that resulted in a $5,877,710 settlement over 49 affected victims. An example search in the VA ERS reporting system with MMR and Merck & Co. as the only two items selected for displaying adverse reports turns up 68,760 events. You can narrow the search extensively for specific data points. There are over 120 new products in the developmental pipeline. The CDC 2019 immunisation schedule currently indicates 30 vaccines with over 40 injections by 18, the bulk of which are before 2 years of age. Vaccines are expected to be a $60 million industry by next year. The overall infant mortality rate in the US in 2017 was 6%, none of which was from measles. Review the map and breakdown of exemption rules state by state. According to the World Health Organization, the measles vaccination prevented an estimated 21.1 million deaths worldwide between 2000 and 2017, the majority of which represent other countries. The CDC's argument is contradictory. It's not worth risking your baby's life because it could die if it does not get the MMR vaccine for measles. The CDC's logic on getting the flu vaccine: there's a small possibility that influenza vaccine could be associated with Guillain-Barré syndrome. No more than 1 or 2 cases per million people vaccinated. This is much lower than the risk of severe complications from flu, which can be prevented by flu vaccine. Millions of dollars in settlements over GBS and death from the flu vaccine took place between 2011 and 2014 alone. This is a short list. According to the Health Resources and Services Administration, there have been 1,853 cases settled and 508 cases dismissed between 2006 and 2016. Their logic is the small percentage of those that are injured or die if they do get the flu vaccine is worth the risk. But the small percentage of those that die if you don't get the measles vaccine isn't worth the risk, and you must get the vaccine. These are the kind of discrepancies that give people pause and make them question the source. The bottom line is, most people feel vaccination should be a choice, not forced. If people were given the full truth and nothing but the truth, they could make an educated decision as to what they feel is best for their child. While they argue that the government shouldn't be involved in abortion and it's a woman's right to choose whether to take her baby's life at full term, they argue quite the opposite for those mums who are concerned about vaccinating their children. UNICEF tweets a frightening video of danger while requesting retweets. There are over 321 million people in the United States. Only 704, 0.00002% contracted the measles in the 2019 outbreak. UNICEF. This is how to protect your child from danger. For every like or retweet, the Gates Foundation will give $1 to UNICEF, up to $1 million. Help spread the word. Vaccines work. Yeah, well, the Gates Foundation's Bill Gates is involved with Epstein. And UNICEF have also been known to be child rapists. Look into that one. I'll link this below if you want to watch any of these stupid videos that they're going to promote vaccines with. I won't even watch them. I just won't even go there. I watched enough on TV and the news talking about anti-vaxxers and how irresponsible people are if they don't get vaccinated, and then having all your friends come at you and unfriending you because you are anti-vax. This story is narrated by a woman. It goes like this. Kids can find danger wherever they go. Sometimes it's above and sometimes it's below. This way and that way, both inside and out. Where else can danger possibly hide? You might be surprised. When keeping kids safe, all parents take note. There are dangers you see and dangers you don't. It's impossible to avoid the dangers that kids get themselves into, but you can do something about the dangers that get into our kids. Child-proof your child. Get them vaccinated. It could save their life. Vaccines, that just is stupidity. Yeah, there you go. That's it, yeah. They use scary pictures with the word danger 6 times in a 1-minute animated video while requesting likes and retweets so as to raise $1 million by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Throughout the video, there is a huge link on it to UNICEF, which takes you here. Vaccines work. Vaccines act as a shield, protecting children and newborn babies from dangerous diseases and saving up to 3 million lives each year. Sorry, don't agree. Yet there are still nearly 20 million unvaccinated and undervaccinated children in the world today. These children are at risk of serious illness, complication, and even death. Many parents want to vaccinate their children but can't because they don't have access to health care. But increasingly, some parents are choosing not to. This reluctance often stems from misconceptions about vaccines or complacency about the likelihood of getting infected. That's why staying informed about the benefits of vaccines and the risks of not getting vaccinated is more important than ever. Oh my God. I'm even having trouble reading this. You understand? I really am having trouble reading anything pro-vaccine because I'm so against it. For 2019 World Immunisation Week, UNICEF launched a global campaign to emphasise the power and safety of vaccines among parents and social media users. From the 24th to the 30th of April, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation contributed US $1 to UNICEF for every like or share of social media posts using the hashtag #VaccinesWork, up to US $1 million to ensure all children get the life-saving vaccines they need. Yeah, right. Wide covered UNICEF and the UK's campaign on combating anti-vaxxers by using hashtags as their weapon of choice. While Public Health England, PHE, ran with value of vaccines, UNICEF went with vaccines work. They pointed out that anti-vaxxers use emotive language and images, appealing to parents' worst fears, which is quite an interesting statement given what we've just observed above. In fact, one might consider this to be a straightforward case of projection. And projection is when you accuse someone of what you're doing, which is what the whole Democrats are doing. Nearly every media, or every corrupt person does anyway, nearly every media source, the CDC, HHS and WHO, have all reported that the anti-vaxxers are dangerous and putting out frightening information. You'll be the judge. What do you think as a parent consider frightening? Statistics or knives raining down on your child? They use death and life-threatening as a fear tactic because, yes, in rare cases, 0.7% in the US, a person can die from the measles. They focus on statistics of death prior to the early 90s while avoiding sharing statistics of actual US deaths from 1993 forward. It would almost seem as though they want the overall death rate to remain a secret, as it would thwart their progress. This is another reason the public has trust issues, because of the lack of transparency and the scare tactics being used. They report in a very biased manner while escalating the dangers. Even on the CDC's website, where they cover the measles history, they won't tell you how many deaths there have been after the early 90s, which is 4. Why? People want to know this information so they can make educated decisions. Another statistic they are not sharing is the fact that 77 out of the 2019 measles cases had already been vaccinated and still contracted measles, which means that doesn't work. Furthermore, the CDC has not indicated how many of the cases were laboratory tested to prove they had measles, which could reduce these numbers significantly, much like what happened in 1994. All of this gives pause to the ongoing lawsuit between Merck and their scientists, who allege Merck falsified the efficacy rate back in the 90s, so as to get approval from the CDC. This is an ongoing case and is covered in Part 5 of this investigation. Some data they're not openly sharing with you. Between 2006 and 2016, there were 94,815,650 doses of MMR distributed in the US, but it's uncertain how many were administered. There were 68,760 events reactions reported in the VAERS system, 483 claims of injury or death from the MMR vaccine were compensated by the US government since 1988. Sorry guys, I'm about to cough again. While they dismissed hundreds of others. It's also important to note that class actions get lumped into one file, so in reviewing numbers from the 2006 to the 2016 compensation chart, these numbers may be skewed. The 2013 Gardasil case is a perfect example of this. Ooh, sorry guys, there's a lot of smoke around and it's really tickling my throat. The HHS awarded $5,877,710 to 49 victims in claims made against the Gardasil HPV vaccine made by Merck. Over 200 claims were filed. Despite the Gardasil case or the $4.1 billion in settlements to those who suffered injuries or deaths from vaccine, USA Today likes to report, for years, studies have repeatedly shown the safety of vaccines and their roles in saving lives. They go on to teach others how to inoculate against misinformation by sending them over to the News Literacy Project's Checkology virtual classroom, alleging this will teach young people how to separate fact from fiction and gain innate resistance to information that aims to oh dear. That aims to mislead, incite, frighten or provoke. That is an interesting choice of words given what the mainstream news is projecting and misrepresenting about the current measles outbreak as cited above. In an attempt to control the information on social media and the internet in regards to vaccines, on February 14th, 2019, US Representative Adam Schiff, DCA, addressed a letter to the Chief Executive Officers of Google and Facebook. And Schiff can just go and put himself in the nearest garbage bin. As a member of Congress who is deeply concerned about declining vaccination rates, I'm requesting additional information on the steps that you currently take to provide medical accurate information on vaccines to your users, and to encourage you to consider additional steps you can take to address this growing problem. I was pleased to see YouTube's recent announcement that it will no longer recommend videos that violate its community guidelines, such as conspiracy theories or medically inaccurate videos, and encourage further action to be taken related to vaccine misinformation. While the media continues to push a narrative of anti-vaxxers being the cause of a measles outbreak, how life-threatening this virus is and how babies could die, one might consider reviewing the statistics themselves, comparing the numbers across a 26-year span and drawing their own conclusions. One might also consider following the money trail, the masterminds and the laws they are trying to force upon people. When reviewing the overall situation as a whole, all of that and more, coming in additional digs files of this investigative report, rolling out every few days. It's time to end the controversy, now more than ever. It is critical that the public see transparency on vaccines, all of the science, discussions and investigations take place, safety policies are put in place, and we get to the bottom of which vaccines are safe, which ones are not, and begin heading into a healthier future where 40+ injections are not necessary to survive. The attacks by media on those trying to cover statistics directly from the CDC and HHS needs to stop. Disregarding credible scientists, suppressing whistleblowers, and settling cases in secret while pretending data doesn't exist needs to come to a halt. Where there is deceit, there will always be resistance. And that's the end of part 2, guys. And I'll keep going with this. I'll do one a day for the next 6 days, 5 days, 4 days now. This is the second one, so there's 4 more to go. Like, subscribe, comment, and take care, guys. I'll hopefully talk to you soon. Bye.